Greetings, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. I'm Lewis Cipher, and this is the Devil's Advocate Debate Club. Today I'd like to talk to you about Universe 25 and the work of John B. Calhoun. This topic was brought up in an ongoing debate with Rational Wrongthink. Check it out on my channel. And I just want to go into a little bit more detail than I did in the rebuttal video about John B. Calhoun's experiments, his methodology, and especially the flaws in his Universe 25 experiment and the ways I believe they might be fixed. So, Universe 25 was, as you might expect, around the 25th of many experiments done by John B. Calhoun. I say around the 25th because not all of his experiments were numbered or recorded. See, John B. Calhoun started his experiments initially with rats and eventually moving on to white lab mice in the 1940s, but didn't start documenting them until sometime in the 50s. By Universe 25, there were 24 documented prior experiments, each an attempt to create a perfect rodent utopia where all of their needs, the rats and the mice, would be met. Food, space. Each one had been an abject failure, for a number of reasons. Now, by the time he got to Universe 25, John B. Calhoun was funded by the National Institute of Mental Health and basically had to, write up a paper that was a proof of his experiments. So if Universe 25 had miraculously succeeded, it would have, in a sense, undermined the prior research he'd done and was continuing being funded to do. So Universe 25 was a planned failure from the beginning. It was bigger and a little bit prettier to look at than his prior experiments, but John Calhoun had done nothing to fix known issues that he had in his experiment. One problem that he didn't necessarily think of or know about to the same level that modern scientists do is a lack of genetic diversity. When he did get to his Universe 25 experiment, they put in 4 pairs of breeding mice. And while mice don't need quite the same level of genetic diversity as humans to continue repopulating, it still affects their growth. So, one of the things that I think we could do to fix the experiment is simply start with more mice. One of the biggest problems that Calhoun did note, however, were the narrow corridors in between the breeding and sleeping grounds, the nesting areas, I should say, and the places where food was put out, which was more in the center of the rat utopia or mouse utopia structure. This meant that the beta males, who betas among rats will actually, or among rodents, will wake up earlier in order to go out and seek food ahead of the alphas, which will, have first pick once they wake up and get there, would leave the nest in order to look for the food, and the alphas would be able to basically cut off the corridors, creating choke points, not allowing any of the betas back, and keeping little harems of all of the preferred female mice for themselves. This led to a number of problems, which could ultimately be solved with wider corridors or more of a room-to-room junction, more open area experiment. That also brings up the problem of food placement. It was in the same place each time, leading mice to become drones, in a sense, waking up, going out to where they knew the food was. If the food placement was in the nests, or spread out evenly throughout the structure, this would somewhat mitigate the problem with alphas blocking off the corridors, even if it was still structured that way. And personally, looking into it, I think that if food placement were randomized, meaning that while there was always plenty of food, mice and rats still had to move around their enclosure and seek it, it would give them a little bit more purpose, more of something to do, and reduce the likelihood of social breakdown. That brings us to number 4, creativity and entertainment. John B. Calhoun's Experiments, from the 40s on into the 70s, when Universe 25 was done, over 30 years after his initial attempts, had nothing even resembling a hamster wheel. And go ahead and get a hamster and keep it for a few months in a cage without a hamster wheel. I think you'll see what the problem might have been with some of his experiments. Now, while a lot of people know about Universe 25, not as many know that Calhoun continued his experiments beyond that, and did find that increasing creativity could reduce the rate of the death phase, as he called it, and slow the collapse of the social structure. With modern advancements in the scientific method, I think we could introduce a lot more creativity into our mice than Calhoun had, and perhaps start avoiding the social breakdown entirely. Now, the benefits of a possible Universe 26, aka a new experiment done along the same lines of John B. Calhoun's initial mouse Utopia, are something else I'd like to talk about. Because with modern advancements in science, we would be able to do things like scan the brains of the beta mice who, some males would end up in the harems with the females being guarded by the alphas. For unknown reasons, these males refused and didn't even attempt to breed with the females. They sometimes were bred by the alpha males, essentially becoming cucks, I guess is the only appropriate term. But as to what naturally would make rodents behave this way, two of the things I can think of are perhaps some just naturally produced more female hormones than others, making the alphas react to them that way. And that could be if a percentage of rodents, like a percentage of people, are born with a disgendered brain. Perhaps these rodents had a female brain and female hormone structure while being otherwise male. At the time Calhoun was doing his tests, there was really no way to, or at least no way that he included in his testing, to search for such things. These days there's all kinds of advances in science which could lead to us learning a lot more from a similar experiment. Personally, I think we should take every step we can to make it a better utopia for mice. Maybe one where they have entertainment, where they're encouraged to be creative, where the narrow corridors and choke points are replaced with broader open rooms, and where their feeding isn't just in a centralized area that becomes, in the death stage, essentially a war zone for all of the disenfranchised mice. In conclusion, I think it's time for Universe 26, or to bring back John B. Calhoun's Experiments. Despite the amazing loss in rodent life that Calhoun witnessed during his scientific career, I still think there's a lot that can be learned from his methodology, especially if improved upon by today's methods. Anyway, I know this video has become a little bit of a rant, but I just wanted to touch on a few things I didn't have time to go over in my rebuttal with Rational Wrongthink. He has let me know that he's got his next rebuttal scripted, so we should have the next debate video out soon. Thanks for listening to me ramble on. I'm Lewis Cipher, And as always, thank you for watching the Devil's Advocate Debate Club. Oh, P.S. Bonus points to anyone in the comics who can name the anime the front sword is from.